If you have ever had a bestseller on Etsy, you probably know what it feels like to have copycats, or you will experience this at one point or another. Once you start getting more best-selling listings, you're bound to find people that are copying your listing, and it can be so frustrating. Especially during Q4, when it's the busiest time of year on Etsy, people are more likely to be shopping on Etsy, and you are more likely to get bestsellers. I know my first time that I saw a copycat of one of my bestsellers, I was so frustrated. I had so many emotions. I was mad at the person for copying me and just frustrated that my hard work was being used in someone else's shop and that they were even getting a few sales on my design. It can be so frustrating the first time that this happens. But in this video, I'm going to go over a few things that you can do to combat these copycats and to help you feel the least amount of stress when you are dealing with copycats, especially during Q4. Before I get into some tips and tricks on how you can handle copycats, I want to explain to you a couple stories that I experienced with copycats. So the first time I had a copycat, I decided what I was going to do is first reach out to the seller and give them a warning because maybe they didn't mean to copy me. It was almost an exact copy, but I think there was maybe a very, very slight variation. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to give them a chance before I report them to Etsy and see if they'll take it down. So I reached out to them, and luckily I had a good experience. This person was really nice, and they said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that I had copied you. I will go ahead and take it down." And they actually did take it down. So that was a really good experience. But with my more recent experience with a copycat, they took the same design that I was selling. I had a bestseller, and I saw that they also had 20 plus in the carts. So they were gaining a lot of traction on this listing as well. Now, this one also wasn't an exact copy, but they used the same mock-up. They used basically the same design, but just changed one of the fonts like very, very slightly. So it was almost an exact copy. But I decided to do the same thing since the first time it worked out for me. I was like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to the seller and see if they would be willing to take it down and that they copied me. So when I reached out to this seller, she basically told me that she takes inspiration from bestsellers and that because it wasn't an exact copy, she is not going to take it down. So then I responded in a nice way and basically said, okay, well, if you're not willing to take it down, I'm going to go ahead and report you. And then she basically countered and said that she can report me as well. And it was just a mess. And I got scared because I was like, you know what? I don't want my bestseller to get reported and taken down. So basically, long story short with that one, I messaged her back saying, okay, I understand that it's not an exact copy. You know, you really should change the design more next time, like when you're taking inspiration from bestsellers, but I'm not going to report you. And I said that in hopes that she wouldn't report me. Luckily, neither of us reported each other, and my listing didn't get taken down. But I was just too nervous that getting my listing taken down was going to hurt my listing. So if you don't know, on Etsy, if you report someone else's listing as a copyright infringement, or if they do the same to you, Etsy will not investigate whose listing was posted first. They will just take down the listing that the person was being accused for copyright infringement, and this will deactivate your listing. You won't be able to republish it for 10 days. So in this case, it can hurt your listing, especially if you have 20 plus in the carts, it's a bestseller, you have a popular now. It can definitely mess up your momentum on that listing that's doing well. So that is the risk that you can take if you are going to reach out to a seller. Okay, let's go ahead and start with going over what Etsy has to say about copyright infringement and intellectual property. So you can find this in their Our House Rules and under intellectual property policy. So basically, their role, Etsy's role, is Etsy reserves the right to disable any listing, shop, or account that we believe violates our terms of use, including this intellectual property policy. You'll need to read through this whole thing. It would be too long of a video to go over, but read through that yourself. Or our prohibited terms policy. Etsy also reserves the right to take action against abusers of Etsy's intellectual property policy or our terms of use. It also says here that Etsy can't speak on behalf of an intellectual property owners, nor is Etsy in any position to offer legal advice or make legal determination whether a shop's content infringes someone else's intellectual property. Etsy will remove material cited for alleged intellectual property infringement when provided with a report that complies with our policies. It also says reports of intellectual property infringement. Etsy strives to respond quickly when we receive a report of intellectual property infringement that complies with our policies by removing or disabling access to the allegedly infringing material. When Etsy removes or disables access in response to a report, Etsy makes a reasonable attempt to contact the affected member, provide information about report removal, and in case of alleged copyright infringement, provide information about how to submit counter notice. Etsy may also provide a copy of the infringement report, including the name and email address of the reporting party and the affected member. And then it also gives you a couple links. If you're reporting against someone, you could use the Etsy reporting portal or Etsy's reporting, and then Etsy's reporting form. And then it talks about a counter notice. In accordance with the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, Etsy accepts counter notices for US-based copyright infringement reports only. When Etsy receives a DMCA counter notice, we will provide a copy of the counter notice to the original complying party. The removed material may be replaced or access to be restored 10 business days after the counter notice is processed, unless the copyright owner files action seeking a court order restraining the allegedly infringing party from relisting the items or qualifying action with the Copyrights Claim Board, and informs Etsy of this action. Read more about counter notices and requirements here. It also says repeat infringement. Etsy terminates selling privileges of members who are subject or repeat multiple notices of intellectual property infringement in appropriate circumstances and at Etsy's discretion. So that's pretty interesting. They don't really say how many times you can get a infringement against your shop before they either suspend your shop or they completely terminate your shop. Let me know in the comments if you have been a part of this at all, and if you know anyone that has had multiple infringements against their shop, and how many times did it take to have Etsy suspend their shop, because it doesn't really say unless I'm just not reading far enough into it. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. So you just want to be really careful not to be a copycat, because if you get reported by too many sellers, Etsy will take action, and it's just not worth having your shop suspended or even terminated. And then we have withdrawals. Etsy only accepts withdrawals of infringement reports directly from the intellectual property owner or authorized representative who submitted the claim. The withdrawal must clearly state that it is a formal withdrawal and sufficiently identify the member and or material, such as by providing the username, shop, and listing URLs. From what I'm understanding, I think this is if the person who reported the copyright infringement, they're the only ones who can basically ask for a withdrawal from Etsy. So say someone reported an infringement against you, and you reached out to the seller and was like, hey, I will take it down. or I just won't copy again, whatever the case may be. You try to settle it between yourselves. Can you withdraw this infringement with Etsy? And then maybe it won't count against your shop. I'm not too sure. But yeah, if you guys know more information about this, also put that in the comments. It's also saying that withdrawals do not guarantee changes to a member's shop status. So even if you get an infringement against your shop and the seller who reported you is telling Etsy, like, never mind, I want to do a withdrawal, they're not saying that it's not going to count against your shop. It's kind of up to Etsy's discretion, so it might not guarantee to make any changes to the status, is what I'm guessing. And then it provides some resources down here if you want to read more into it. So let's go ahead and get into some of the options that you have as a seller if you have a copycat and you want to handle it. Okay, so let's go over how we can handle copycats. So our very first option is you can reach out to the seller and nicely ask them to take it down, to give them a chance to do the right thing, and let them know that if you don't take it down, or if they don't take it down, you will report them to Etsy for a copyright infringement. Now, the risk of this is, I have heard it happening to other people. A member in Shawna's group, this happened to. But anyways, the risk is the seller may report you first and your listing can be taken down for 10 days. And in this case, it was terrible for the seller who reached out because she got her bestseller taken down for 10 days and it really hurt her listing in the algorithm. So that is a risk. I know it's a nice thing to do from seller to seller, like give them the opportunity to, try and take it down and do the right thing, but then you also have a risk of them taking an action against you first in some way, or you could just end up dealing with a whole mess of them messaging you back and forth or saying mean things. So it could get a little messy, but if you feel in your heart that it's the right thing to do, you can try this option. Okay, so what is a second option that we can do to handle copycats? If you believe that this is an exact copy of your design, and I mean exact, they didn't alter anything, then you can go ahead and report them to Etsy without messaging them first, just to make sure that they're not going to report you first and you're just getting it out of the way and letting Etsy decide if they want to take down their listing for 10 days. There is still a risk in this option. So, if the seller can argue that their design is not an exact copy, they can file a DMCA counter notice if the design is not an exact copy, like I said. They may also report to Etsy if they believe you abuse the intellectual property policy, which Etsy can then investigate your account and even terminate your account privileges. This is in the case that the seller believes that your report was false, fraudulent, or submitted in bad faith. They can provide that information to Etsy, and then Etsy technically can investigate your account and take action against your account. Now, I don't think that you could have your shop just terminated from one of these, but you do have a risk of, if multiple sellers report you, like a counter report, then I think you are at a risk that Etsy can, at their discretion, terminate your shop or suspend your shop. So there is some risk involved in doing this if it's not an exact copy. Because I know there's a lot of copycats that their design looks super similar to yours, but if they change one little element or one font that looks super similar, it's technically not an exact copy, and they can, counter your copyright. So just keep that in mind. And of course, the last option and the safest option would be to just move on with your life and don't reach out to the seller or report them. Now, this, I think, is how I'm going to be handling copycats moving forward in my shop. One, because I just don't think that it's worth getting into any legal disputes with another seller or having another seller try to, counter whatever your infringement was. There's so many things that can happen when you report someone or you get into that kind of thing that it might just not be worth your time and energy, especially if you already have a bunch of other bestsellers and you can keep creating more bestsellers. And you know what? On Etsy, designs and bestsellers die all the time. So you want to be continually creating things that are trending and selling well. So in my opinion, I don't think that reaching out to the seller or even reporting them is worth my time, energy, and just my peace of mind, honestly. So what are some things we can do to combat this if we do have a copycat and we're not going to report them? Well, first, what I like to do is I lower my price to beat their price. If they have it at break even, I mean, at least you're still competing. And if yours was posted first, you probably have more sales anyways. So, yeah, you can still outbeat them with your price change. And then once you start seeing more traction on the listing, you can up your price because yours just has more traction and is higher up in the algorithm at that point compared to theirs. So you're kind of weeding them out. Number 2, you can duplicate that listing and change out the mockup or SEO to try to give your design another chance to be found. So you would use the exact same design, but you would change, like I said, either the listing photo or the SEO. And who knows, that could become a bestseller. I've actually had duplicated listings where I did like an A/B test on it, where I changed out like the mock-up. It was the same design, but I did a different mock-up, and both became bestsellers. I mean, one sold a little bit more than the other, but they were both doing well. So I was bringing in like more sales on the same design, and yeah, so that could be another way that you can get your design seen and get some more sales that way. Or third option is you can make a more trendy design or multiple trendy designs in that same niche to outsell them in that niche. And you want to be doing this anyways. When you are selling in a niche, you always want to be doubling down. So there you have it. There is a lot of tips in this video. Go back and watch it if you ever get stuck and you have a copycat and you're trying to decide how you want to handle it. And just know your risks in whatever decision that you make. For me personally, I think it's just way less stress to not report the seller, to just move on with my life and try to outsell them. Because think about all the time that you could be wasting trying to, report them, or you're like having a conversation back and forth, or they're getting like, an attorney involved at like the worst level. But, it's just not worth spending all of your time debating another seller about one of your designs. As Etsy sellers, especially print-on-demand sellers, we are constantly making new designs, and that is the beauty in this business. It is scalable, and we can put out thousands of new listings and have new bestsellers on new listings that we're constantly posting. And like I said, trends die. So if you're arguing a seller about a trend that is trendy right now, your listing might end up dying eventually and not even be making you sales in the future because it's just a trend that is not popular anymore. So it's just, in my opinion, worth just sticking to your own lane and doing what you do best, creating new designs, and just killing it. Also, if you look at it this way, kind of take it as a compliment when you see people copying your design. That means that you made it. You have bestsellers out there that are doing super well on Etsy, that are doing so well that your sellers are wanting to copy you. And they think that you have the best design and that they're going to make sales off of it. Like, that means you have gotten to a level where you know how to put out really good designs, and that means that you're going to continue to put out good designs and have more bestsellers and more sales. I know it's very upsetting when you see copycats. I think I might have even cried the first time. I'm kind of sensitive, but I just remember feeling so frustrated and why would anyone do that? They're a seller too. They wouldn't want someone copying their hard work that they created. I just went down this rabbit hole of just being so angry at this person. And in the grand scheme of things, it's so small, and it's part of the game on Etsy. You're gonna get copycats. Everybody's gonna get copycats. If you have a bestseller, there's always gonna be people that are gonna want to copy you, especially newer shops, because they're trying to grow their shops quickly, and hopefully those shops are just going to get shut down anyways, because they're going to have multiple people reporting against them, and they're not doing it the correct way. So I like to believe that, karma will come around to them. I know that sounds bad, but if they're doing something that is just not right, hopefully they're going to have consequences. So anyways, I hope this video was super helpful and you feel much more confident handling copycats. And just remember, when you see copycats, stay calm, have a plan of action. This is what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to move on. You're not going to sit there and worry about it all day. You're not going to let it take up too much time or space in your mind, and you're going to move on and let it motivate you to just keep creating and doing what you do best. Now it's time for our weekly wins. This week, my weekly win is I put up a Christmas design. It was something that was trending, and I know it's getting kind of late to put up Christmas designs because, Black Friday is right around the corner, and that's really the last day that we want to be listing for Christmas anyways, because you're most likely not going to get sales on a Christmas item after that because it's going to take time to get into the algorithm. But long story short, if you put out things that are trending right now that are Christmas related, you still have a chance to get sales on those. And that's exactly what happened. I listed it a few days ago and it's already starting to take off. It has 20 plus in the carts, and I've had a sale or two every day or every couple days. So just think, if I wouldn't have listed that, then I wouldn't be seeing those sales right now. I know a lot of people get in their head and say, oh, well, it's too late. It's too late for me. It's too late to put up Christmas designs, or, I am just so behind. It's not too late as long as you are putting up things that are trending and you are bringing something that people want right now to the market. You still have a great chance of something taking off and being a bestseller and making lots of money this Q4. And if you don't follow Shawna or Cassiy, they both have stories like this where they listed something. I think Shawna listed something on Black Friday. And if she wouldn't have listed that on Black Friday, she wouldn't have made, I think it was literally $6,000 profit from that one listing that she listed on Black Friday. I believe it was a holiday design. And it was something that was trending, but she put some sort of really good, unique spin on it, and it just took off. All it takes is one listing to really make you so much money in Q4. So do not give up. Do not have imposter syndrome where you're just coming up with reasons why you're not going to succeed. Keep pushing. It's the week before, I think it's the week before Thanksgiving, Black Friday. Yeah, I think it is right now. But do not give up. Keep posting stuff for this season all the way up until Black Friday weekend, because you could be that person, I could be that person that didn't give up and made a ton of money on a listing that took off. So this is my encouragement to you to keep listing, and you're going to do great for Q4. And yeah, go ahead and put your weekly wins down in the comments. And if you like this video and want more content like this, I would really, really appreciate a subscribe and a like. And yeah, I hope that I can keep creating more content like this for you to help you grow your shop. All right, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.